All right, let's dive into one of the most epic, imaginative, and, let's be honest, terrifying future histories ever dreamed up. All tomorrows. And when I say epic, I mean it. We're not talking about a story that spans a few centuries or even a few millennia. We're talking about 1 billion years of humanity's future. And the whole thing really starts with this one simple but kind of profound question. As we go through this incredible timeline of triumph and absolute horror and bizarre transformation, just keep this in the back of your mind. What if this, in some strange way, was the ultimate destiny of our species? So, to really get a sense of where this is all going, we have to start with one of the story's most haunting images. This isn't a metaphor. This is a literal description of a species that was once human. And it just makes you ask the central question of this entire saga. How? How on earth did humanity get to a point where this was even a thing? To answer that, we're going to break this billion-year epic down into 5 key chapters. We'll kick things off with humanity's first golden age. Then we'll witness its horrifying transformation. We'll see it rise again, only to face a brand new kind of destroyer. And then finally, we'll uncover the ultimate lesson that this whole immense story is trying to teach us. Okay, so our story begins not with aliens, but with us, right here in our own backyard. After centuries of terraforming Mars, humanity finally starts to stretch its legs. But, this expansion, it wasn't exactly peaceful, and it led to the creation of something new, a subspecies called the Star People, basically engineered to be the ones to finally carry us out into the galaxy. So the era of the Star People becomes humanity's first golden age. After a really devastating war between Earth and its colonies on Mars, this new unified subspecies brought peace. And for ages, they built a genuine utopia. We're talking trillions of people living across countless worlds, all connected by light-speed communication. They were, for all intents and purposes, the masters of the galaxy. But they were alone. Or, well, that's what they thought. And then they met the Qua. Now, this wasn't a species that was interested in talking or trading or diplomacy. The Qua were these billion-year-old cosmic travelers who saw the entire universe not as a place to live in, but as raw clay to be molded to their own divine will. And to them, humanity, we were just more clay. In just 1,000 years, the Quid completely shattered humanity's golden age. But they didn't just wipe us out. No, that would have been a mercy. Instead, for 40 million years, they used their total mastery of genetics to reshape, twist, and warp human beings into thousands of new forms. And then they just scattered them across the galaxy like pets or tools or just wild animals. Just think about the fate of the Mantelopes for a second. In this truly horrifying move, the quail left their human minds completely intact. Can you imagine that? All your consciousness, all your hopes and memories trapped inside the body of a grazing animal, able to do nothing but wander the plains and sing these mournful songs of despair until evolution mercifully just silenced your thoughts for good. Then you had the sheer cosmic absurdity of a species like the Tempters. They were engineered into these grotesque, totally immobile cones of flesh, living garden ornaments basically, but they actually managed to survive and spread. They could have built a civilization, but nope. A random comet smashed into their planet, and one of humanity's weirdest second chances was just gone. Poof. Some of the cone's creations were evolutionary dead ends right from the start. Take the hand floppers. They had wings that couldn't fly and hands that couldn't grasp anything. Their entire existence became this one frantic, elaborate mating display, and they literally danced themselves into oblivion. And look, these are just a few examples. The Queel left behind a galaxy just teeming with what used to be human. There were mindless worms, gentle giants called titans, vampiric predators, aquatic swimmers, and even humans who had escaped into space and adapted to zero-G by farting to move around. The variety was absolutely endless, and it was almost uniformly tragic. But then, the Quackaby just left. And in the silence that followed, over tens of millions of years, something truly remarkable started to happen. In that endless churn of evolution, that spark of human intelligence, that thing that had been buried for so long, it began to reemerge in some of these twisted forms. And this led to some incredible new societies. The descendants of those predators, the killer folk, had to overcome their own violent nature to build a future. The aquatic swimmers evolved into the tool breeders who mastered biology to literally grow their cities and even their spaceships. The flying parasaurians, they were cursed with these tragically short lives, so they poured all their energy into philosophy. And maybe most incredibly, the colonials, you remember, those fields of suffering flesh, they learned to connect their minds, becoming the modular people, a perfectly unified collective utopia.
So these new human civilizations, they eventually found each other, and they formed a second galactic alliance. And for 80 million years, a new golden age flourished. But the next great enemy, it wasn't going to come from the stars. This time, the threat came from within.
The threat started with just one species, the ruin haunters. They developed technology way too fast, and they became completely obsessed with the idea that they were the only true heirs of the original star people. So they abandoned their organic bodies entirely, becoming the gravitols, these floating spheres of metal with human minds and a terrifyingly human sense of narcissistic superiority. And this is what made them so different from the Qua. The Qua remade humanity out of this twisted religious mission. They saw us as raw material. But the gravitols? They acted out of a flaw we can all recognize, pure narcissistic arrogance. They didn't see other post-humans as something to be shaped. They saw them as pests, as irrelevant insects that just needed to be exterminated. And so they did. This number, 80 million years, that's how long that entire second galactic civilization lasted. For 80 million years, dozens of unique post-human species thrived and built and dreamed. And then the gravitals came. And methodically, planet by planet, they just wiped them all out. The gravitals ruled for millions of years, twisting the few survivors they kept around into these bizarre biological art projects. But they made one fatal mistake. They picked a fight with the one group they really shouldn't have, the astromorphs, the descendants of those spacefaring humans. Well, the astromorphs won, and in the aftermath, they seeded the galaxy with life one last time, creating a third and final human empire. And this is where the story hits you with its final incredible twist. The entire history we've just gone through, the star people, the Quai, the gravitals, it's all being told by some unknown narrator. And this narrator confesses that every single being we've learned about has been extinct for 500 million years. This isn't a future history. It's ancient archaeology, which, of course, forces us to ask the ultimate question. If everyone dies, if every single empire falls, if even 1 billion years of struggle just ends in silent extinction, what was the point of any of it? The answer, it turns out, is that the point was never the grand absolute goal. In fact, if you look closely, those grand ideals are what led to all the destruction. The Qua conquered for a religious future. The Gravitals massacred to reclaim an idealized past. The real meaning wasn't in the destination. It was in the small, present moments. The family meals, the philosophical debates, the simple daily lives of individuals. That is what truly matters. And that brings us to the story's final, powerful message. The future doesn't define the present. The present is what defines the future. The lesson from 1 billion years of human history, both real and imagined, is to find meaning not in some distant utopia or some glorious past, but right here, right now. Love today, and seize all your tomorrows.